Okay. Welcome. We bid you welcome, John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad. Monday Night Metal. I don't know. Maybe that's a good term.
Yeah.
Maybe Monday Night Meat might be a good one here too. But we're going to talk some wrestling, and with me, all the way from we've seen him on Mike Lodano's Grab a Stack of Rock. Where else have we seen you, Uncle? This is the man, the myth, the legend, Uncle Meat. Welcome.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. And
Yeah, man.
It's weird that right now, presently, that you're the shaggiest guy right now, and it's a weird switcheroo that's happening here. But yes, I am in the same place that Mr. Lodano is in, Kitchener-Waterloo, which is an hour down the road from Elimination Chamber that just happened.
Oh boy, here we go.
That's funny.
Rut-row. Oh boy. Yeah, so another friend of mine, Metal Roger, really wanted to go to Elimination Chamber. He was trying, but I think some other life stuff came up for him, and he just said, "No, I'm going to be the responsible adult, and I'm not going to go." And I think,
where's he?
He's not. He's up in that area too. I don't know. I forget exactly where. Maybe when he comes on, if he comes on to watch this, yeah, we can ask him exactly. Maybe Mike knows. I can't exactly.
I'm sure Lodano knows that.
Yeah,
that answer.
But
cool.
But yeah, so we've been going back and forth talking about doing some musical stuff, but then then this wrestling thing came up, and we're like, heck yeah.
Well, I find it kind of the one thing I find kind of fascinating is we could tell that we're both definitely passionate about wrestling and have been a long time, and we've never really talked about it. So this top 5 wrestler thing that's going to happen is going to be interesting because we're literally going to find out what we both like for the first time right now. So that's kind of
yeah. But first, how about we talk a little Elimination Chamber?
Indeed.
So yeah, so you say that's only about an hour away from where you are, right?
Yes, it was. I mean, it was from the Rogers Center, which is known better for around here as the Skydome. And I have seen wrestling once there before. Which the only pay-per-view that I've ever been lucky enough to be at, WrestleMania 18 with The Rock and Hogan.
Nice.
It was pretty amazing. I mean,
nice.
I have never seen a Raw or SmackDown like you, but I did see a Monday Night Nitro in this town, which is how low that they were falling, that they actually came to Kitchener, and it was horrible.
Anyway. I saw a couple nitros when I was up in Maryland. I think my one of my famous nitros was I think that was the night Buff Bagwell joined the NWO.
I remember. Well, yeah. I
remember speaking of pay-per-views that I have been at,
oh, there you go, right there, beauty.
So I can say that I have my wrestling buddy to thank for that.
Beauty.
Love her like a sister. Elimination Chamber. Okay, yes. So there's only 4 matches. There's only one we probably won't touch much on.
Yeah, probably not.
Let's just start first with the opening one, the female, the ladies getting into the chamber.
Well, it was a great field. So
yeah,
it was a great field of 6.
Yes, I thought you had Naomi, you had Bailey, you got Bianca, you got Roxana Perez, you got Alexa Bliss, of course, and then of course you have Liv Morgan.
Indeed.
And I thought, my God, if Liv Morgan wins this thing, I am not watching the night of WrestleMania when she wins because I'm not a Liv Morgan fan.
It's been
she has a year and a half for her. Yeah. It has been, yes. I don't agree with it, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, but let's then the bell rings.
Yeah,
and then of course we get somebody's music hits.
Jade Cargill,
and of course Liv looks like she's about to pee her trunks.
Yeah.
But then, if you noticed, even Naomi looked back at Bianca and she's like, "Uh-oh, what? What?"
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get the ridiculous attack on Naomi. But I mean, let's face it. Stevie Wonder could have seen that coming from Pluto.
Yeah, for sure. And, but I will say that it was a pretty cool beatdown.
Yes,
and by far the best we've seen of Jade Cargill as like a dominant thing.
yes.
Everything else has been all this tinsel on the tree. There's been no. I mean that was okay. Yeah,
that was the best moment I think I've ever seen of Liv Morgan or of Jade Cargill. Yes, yeah. I agree. Yeah, I completely agree with that. But
it was cool.
It was interesting. There was I think if you go on Instagram or social medias, like WWE has this split screen, so you're seeing what's going on, and then you have what Bianca's seeing, and then all of a sudden the beatdown happens, and you're seeing her just going completely ballistic in there. She's like, "Oh my gosh, yeah."
Yeah, it was good.
That was very good, but boy, I'm still waiting for them to do that from the announcer's point of view for another topic we'll talk about later tonight with the Elimination Chamber. So, all in all, though, once you have Jade and Naomi out of the picture, for the rest of the match, not bad. Not bad. You had some good spots. Yeah. You got a hair whip in.
Yeah.
Which, you got to, if you're going to mess with Bianca's hair, you're going to get a hair whip.
Yeah, there you go. She got it good.
I don't think there was really any kind of, I really didn't know who was going to win it. I wasn't really picking Bianca, but
yeah,
it really could have gone I would have been happy with just about anybody but Liv.
I was kind of hoping for Alexa Bliss. But that didn't really seem to make sense. She just came back. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I guess the only thing that really made sense is
probably Bianca.
It's Bianca, really.
Bianca or Liv, but yeah.
Or Liv, yeah.
I mean,
but Liv has a tag belt. They rarely do that. You know what I mean? So I mean,
we've seen Rhea versus Liv enough. We don't need to see any more of that. So, but I think everybody pretty much had a nice showing. There was some good stuff, good spots throughout the whole thing.
It was good.
The women's tag match, nothing really special here. Just a nice match for Trish Stratus to, to grace the public with her presence.
I found it interesting that it was Nia Jax that took the fall.
Me too.
And I think the reason for that is you're trying to elevate Tiff as much as possible, and her pinning Nia kind of does that. So
I think it did. Yeah. I think that'll help her look strong as she goes into WrestleMania against Charlotte. So, but yeah, again, nothing really overly, nothing great to talk about there. KO versus Sammy.
Wow. As we briefly discussed earlier, there's been so many of these matches, and it's very, very hard to top because after you've seen a level of violence between the two for many, many years, how do you top it? Because
oh god, yeah,
you don't want them to literally die. I mean, you have to cap it off at some point. So it was a good match. You knew it was going to be a good match. I wasn't more than anything, but it's hard to explain.
I think back to a match where they had in Ring of Honor, and it was the final battle match. It was right before Sammy left to go to WWE. And I just think of how brutal that match was. And I think of the ending spot that was the final to the match. And it was ladders like draped up and set up and kind of set up against each other type of thing, and KO does a package pile driver on the ladders. And I'm just thinking, oh god, that's brutal. But and that whole match was brutal. But,
that's Ring of Honor for you.
Yeah. The only thing about this match I didn't like was I felt like a lot of the commentary during the beginning part of the match got kind of hokey at times. And then as the match got along, you could the uncomfortability of the announcers were coming out. It's like, you were just like waiting for Jim Ross to come out and say, "Stop the damn match! Stop the damn match! The man's got a family." My buddy Chase, he could do a much better impersonation than I can. He sounds more like Jimmy Hart when he says it, but he does it better. But I mean, it's like you're waiting, you're just waiting for something like that to happen. But still not a bad match. Match of the night for me. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I'd have to say it's probably match of the night as well. The other thing with it, which is this is a weird thing, probably because they're both Canadian guys. It gets hyped a lot that they're both Canadian guys when they're in a Canadian town. And yeah, I like that. I've always had a thing, obviously, after the Canadian wrestling fan and scene and stuff. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I've kind of found myself frustrated that they never can get along. Like if anything, it's like honestly, it was like, they're at odds again. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I was feeling about it. So
yeah, it's like a constant up and down relationship kind of thing. But
I'd rather see them as a tag team. I think that's just me.
I agree, and a lot of people were probably wondering, well, why didn't they save this match for WrestleMania? And I'm thinking, well, maybe Sammy really is legit hurt with other things, and maybe he just needs some time away. But we almost forgot.
Oh yeah.
We heard voices that night too.
Yes, we did.
And here comes Mr. Randy Orton.
And then the cowardly Randy Orton beats the crap out of a guy who just got his head beat in for half an hour. Way to go, Randy Orton.
Yeah, but he almost got the pun in.
What?
That was right.
Oh, the punch. Yeah, the punch.
Yes, he was going to do the pun on him, and that's when finally they all stormed the ring and they're like, no. And then it was like, and then we had the Oprah moment. You get an RKO. You get an RKO. Everybody gets an RKO.
That's exactly what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was great. Funny. I love that part. So
it was cool.
But my wrestling buddy was very happy to see Randy back too. She and her daughter both are very big Randy Orton fans. So she was.
We know it's going to be Randy Orton and Kevin Owens and wrestling.
Oh God, yeah. That's going to be a barn. That's going to be a barn burner. So
yeah.
Okay, so the last one, of course, is now the male chamber.
And I gotta say this: when the male chamber match started, I remember to myself, like complaining to myself because I was by myself, that I'm like, wait a second, why is this Cody? I want your soul thing not now, and then the main event is the main event.
Yeah.
At the time, I was like, this doesn't, well, I didn't know what was coming. Anyway,
no.
It ended up making sense, but at the time, I thought, oh, this is dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just start from the very beginning of this thing. So the first person brought out is Logan Paul.
Of course, and he brings out an American flag, and I knew that was. I mean, that's classic heel.
It is.
I love my heels, so I can't complain.
But yeah, that was. That was interesting when that happened. So I had a feeling that was going to cause some flack. But Drew and Seth get to start off. Then Damian Priest gets in, Logan gets in, then Cena. Drew gets eliminated.
Yeah.
He was my pick.
Yeah. I had seen some people, I had actually seen one person who said it was already spoiled, that Drew McIntyre was winning the Elimination Chamber. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that seems a little, I don't know.
Maybe it was Dave Meltzer that said it.
No, it wasn't Meltzer. It was another person. I don't know. But anyway,
I just figured. Well, and I figured with Damian Priest being the one who eliminated him. Well, obviously that's going to set something up for those two probably at WrestleMania. Which,
but what's Punk going to be doing now? because like Punk looked like anyway, I mean, we got to say what happened, but
well, I guess tune into Raw tonight for the fallout, maybe, I guess. But anyway, but pretty soon after Drew's gone, then Priest is out because he gets Claymored, and then Frog Splashed, and then that he takes care of him.
Yeah.
Now Punk comes in, so you already got two people out, and so Paul gets eliminated by the GTS. Rollins then gets the elimination by the combination GTS into the AA. Punk covers.
It was kind of cool, actually.
I thought that was a good thing. What about the heart attack?
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was nice. That was a nice spot.
That was pretty awesome, I gotta say. Yeah,
that was way to make the crowd pop for Canada for that one. They had to do something good with that. So
yeah, for sure. Awesome.
And then of course, Rollins is eliminated. He hasn't gotten out of the cage yet. He's kind of taking his time to get out. Punk gets right near that little grate. Here comes Rollins out of nowhere with a stomp. Yes. Knocks him silly. Cena's like,
yeah.
Puts him in that the STF, and
and Cena wins it.
And Cena wins it.
And to be honest, the match itself, with the exception of a few cool spots, again, nothing that special.
Nothing overly special. No.
Yeah.
No, you had nice moments here and there, but for the most part, no, it wasn't really anything totally special. But then the excitement happens when they raise the cage, and here comes Cody. Whoa! And you get all that popping circumstance, and then
went over well.
Travis Scott.
Yeah, that was weird. Whatever. It's just weird.
All the time they're talking about him, I'm like, who's Travis Scott? I don't even know who he is.
Was Cardi B busy?
Who knows? I don't know. Well, I take that back. Travis Scott came down with Jey Uso that one time, and because I think Jey Uso, Jey Uso kind of had to stay back from him because Travis was like smoking his 420 stuff all the time. So he was like, he was trying to not breathe in the smoke so he could test positive, so he wouldn't test positive the next day or something.
Of course. He's had those problems.
Yeah. So anyway, so The Rock comes down. Now we get Cody. It is time to hand over your soul. That whatever he says.
So ridiculous.
So, and Cody gives a nice answer. I sold my soul to this ring many years ago and to these people.
Yeah.
And then the scene takes what I feel was a little bit of a kind of a carryover or a ripoff from AEW.
Okay.
When Cody tells Rock, when Cody tells Rock, I was like, where have I heard this before? Remember when Edge came into AEW and he and Christian got together, and Christian was like, "Go F yourself."
Yeah.
And even Christian had that really dour look on his face, and then you see all of that transpiring, and then here comes Cena. He's like, "Yeah, way to stick it to the man," and then they see the hug. And then that dour look on Cena's face, and then
I gotta say
the kick is up and the kick is good.
Okay, now I got a few things to say about this. First of all, the go after yourself.
Yes,
it didn't bother me at all. It shocked me like it should have. I will add that, and I purposely did this. The next morning, I watched the whole segment again on the official WWE YouTube channel, and they did not bleep the F.
No,
They did
Now,
not bleep it, and that means a lot because they had all the time in the world to do, and they made the choice not to do it. So this is definitely the Netflix era, and that's why it doesn't bother me. I can see how some people are going to be bothered by it. I think it's there's a lot more things going on than swear words.
But here's the crazy part of it all. Prior to that, there was a lot of bleeping, not bleeping, but silencing of either crowd or wrestlers. There was a lot of that kind of stuff going on prior to that.
I don't get that.
So what I understood from watching the after presser, Triple H was like, okay, everybody, y'all need to leave. I'm taking it from here. And because he knew what was about to happen, nobody else knew. And he goes, I know what's going to happen here. I'm taking all over the controls here. So he obviously knew not to bleep that out to make the, I guess, the impact of it all, I guess. But yeah, it was just so weird that they were bleeping out everything else throughout the night, but that they didn't. But yeah, it was kind of weird. But, and then of course you get the beat down. You get them, between the roll, he got hit so hard the Rolex fell off and he used it to hit him. That was a good move.
I got to say this too. And as you're going to find out, spoiler alert, in my top 5 things, let's just say that I am definitely a heel guy.
Okay.
So I remember even thinking to myself, well, again, I was watching it by myself and thinking to myself, I can't remember why. But at some point, I remember thinking to myself, well, it's neat. John Cena is the one guy who has never turned heel. I remember thinking to myself, and I did not see this coming. I can honestly, I did not see this coming, especially considering that this is his last 8 months and his farewell tour, and the fans love it. I still think it's kind of an odd choice, but I think it's kind of a cool choice at the same time. So I like it.
Yeah,
I do. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I'm certainly fine with it. The thing that I don't know if it bothers me. A lot of people are comparing this to when Hogan turned at Bash at the Beach.
Well, you can compare it a little bit.
You can compare it a little bit, but to me, I mean, Hogan he still had maybe a couple of good years left in him yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's stretching it, but I think he just was wanting he just wanted to do something different. And, but I think we know when this year's over, Cena's done. He has said that. He has been very adamant about that.
And it's time.
Yeah. So for me, the turn that I compare this to, and while it wasn't on such a grand stage, it was in a Piper's Pit when Andre turned on Hogan.
Well, he kind of turns on him, I guess.
Yeah, because he wanted the match.
See, I remember one where Orndorff turned on Hogan on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
like wrestling, where there was a match where they tagged together, and Orndorff turned on Hogan. So yeah,
well, I remember that, but with Andre, it was in a Piper's Pit. And
when he rips
Jesse was there, he rips the shirt, he rips the necklace off, and Piper says, "You're bleeding," And but that was just on Piper's Pit. That wasn't on a pay-per-view. That wasn't in a that was like a smaller scale. But you were setting up that whole passing the torch type of thing. Yeah. And I wonder if that's kind of the way that this whole Cena thing is going to build up, is maybe like an odd passing of the torch type of deal.
Well, maybe, I do another thing that I thought right after it happened, and I knew I was going to mention this to you, that, I mean, John Cena's done it all. Like, literally in wrestling and outside of wrestling. So, I can honestly say, I bet you this was Cena's idea. I bet you, the one thing I haven't done and I've always wanted to do, I want to be a heel.
Wants to be that heel.
Why not? It's
Yeah.
going to be interesting when this happens. He's an actor. Like he is a talented guy. So it's very possible that some of the vignettes they do up are going to really make me laugh because it's kind of stuff I really like, you know.
Marlon with Bruiser Brody. Whew. Love it.
Bruiser. Love him.
There we go. So, all right. Now, so the other part we're going to do with this is we wanted to throw out our top 5 wrestlers of all time for us. So
just favorite, not best,
or favorite, right? Favorite wrestlers of all time.
Best is a different discussion.
Yes,
but
correct. Favorites, yes.
Yeah,
agreed. So, being the guest, take it away, Uncle Meat. We'll go back and forth.
Okay. Now, I had said to you how my top 3 were a guarantee and a no-brainer. 4 and 5, I struggled with. It just kept on going back and forth and changing picks and changing the order of 4 and 5. And I'm going to go with what I finally settled on. And my number 5, I have to go with a Canadian boy. And, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, Mr. Bret Hart.
Oh yeah,
he comes in at number 5. I am old enough that I started watching Bret Hart. I didn't know much was going on. I started watching Bret Hart in Stampede Wrestling because it was available in TSN here in Canada, and then the Hart Foundation, and then the Canadian angle, which was in like the mid 90s, which I really loved that whole thing. And just an amazing wrestler and an ambassador to the game. He had a horrible WCW experience. From beginning to end. And, it's kind of partly his fault and it's kind of partly not his fault, but it is what it is.
The only match that I really feel like was a standout match for Bret in WCW was the tribute match with Benoit.
Yes.
That was a fantastic match.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah, for sure.
But
totally.
All right, so let's see. So my number 5. So I've been like going back and forth with a lot of different ones, and so but yeah, I'm gonna. One that I guess of my favorites right now, it's usually one that I wind up buying a T-shirt of when I go to the new events of these days. But we've already talked a little bit about him, Kevin Owens.
Well, it's another Canadian boy.
Yes, I've loved watching him since I started being able to see Ring of Honor, because we had one of those. Whatever the broadcast, I can't even remember the name of the broadcasting system that they were a part of, but that's where I saw Kevin Steen and El Generico and all those guys, and Roderick Strong, of course, was all there, and Eddie Edwards, and who was Eddie Edwards' tag? There was a tag. He tagged a lot. I can't think of his name. Can't think of his name. But anyway, neither here nor there. Tommaso Ciampa was there. Ciampa was a maniac back then. But
he's been around longer than you think.
Yeah, he really has. But no, I was always a Kevin Owens fan from Ring of Honor, and I liked what he was doing in NXT, and I've always was watching him, and I just always liked his character. So that's gonna be my number 5.
That's a good pick, and and I'll say this, and probably not a shock to you, but I have nobody that's even near the roster. Like I'm an old school guy, now I struggle with that. I'm like, I really should put somebody who's in this era. I thought about AJ Styles. I thought about Jacob Fatu, just because of how great he's become in 2 months or whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, my number 4 is, another old school guy. And in ways is the guy who truly created my deep love of wrestling, was because I remember sitting at my buddy's place. I had stayed over at his place, and there we are. We're watching Saturday afternoon wrestling, and Cyndi Lauper is on there and everything, and Roddy Piper comes out and smashes a gold record over
Dennis
over
Wolf.
Over I think
It was Cindy's manager, boyfriend at the time, Dennis Wolf.
No,
No. It was Lou Albano.
Lou Albano. He smashed the thing on, and then he gave a power slam to the Wolf
Dennis
guy.
Wolf. Yes, that's right. That's right.
And that was before I became a heel lover. I remember being so angry and upset. I'm like, I can't believe he's attacking Cyndi Lauper and because of that is the reason that me and my buddy, like a few months later, ended up seeing the first WrestleMania live on a closed circuit thing at the auditorium here. So, I mean, I can thank Roddy Piper for making it possible for me to actually witness the first WrestleMania and beyond, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So Roddy Piper had to be number 4. And there he is.
Yep. He came to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and he's all out of bubblegum. So
that is an underrated movie that still holds up. I watched
it is.
Not that long ago. That movie holds up tremendously.
I need to watch it again. It's been a while, but I love Roddy Piper. No, love Roddy Piper. Love that match with him and Gold Dust, the backyard, the Hollywood, the back alley brawl. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man,
great stuff.
So, all right, my next one is going to be the only other current wrestler. The rest of them are going to be more old school for me after this one. But my number 4 is another one we've kind of talked a little bit about, and but for this is I go back for other reasons than just his character and how he's getting screwed, I think, a little bit these days. But Drew McIntyre. I love Drew McIntyre. I think he's great. I think my big thing with him, I got to meet him once at the DDPY Performance Center in Atlanta.
That's cool.
And I was wearing, and go figure this, nobody will figure I was wearing a Wasp t-shirt, but of course I'm wearing a Wasp t-shirt. And he sees my shirt. And he's like, oh, Scott, I like the Wasp shit, man. I got to see them back in Belfast back in whatever it was. And I'm like, thanks, dude. Drew, thanks. And so, cool. What was really cool was that night was DDP led his workout for his program, and it was a particular workout called that he was thinking about calling "Living in the Red Zone," which for DDP, for all the DDPY folks if you don't know, red zone means you're basically in your above your fat zone burning zone. And so you're like, your heart's like pumping like crazy. Well, that's about what this workout was. I remember it. Well, Drew was in that workout with us with about 50 or 60 people in this room.
That's cool.
And he was very gracious enough to take pictures with whoever wanted to have a picture with him. You know, we did like the diamond cutter sign with him, and he was just a awesome dude. And so Drew McIntyre, that's my number 4.
That's awesome. I Drew McIntyre. I find his career path interesting because I remember when he first came up and he was anointed the next one by Vince McMahon, and then he just wasn't that. But when he came back, even his style is completely different. He's way more aggressive now, and he's way better than what he was then. There's no comparison.
Absolutely.
Okay, number three. Once again, I love the heels. I really do, and with a little note to Chris Jericho, who did not make my list, but like one of the funniest things.
He didn't make the list.
He didn't make it. It's fun.
Sorry.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen in the history of wrestling was when when Chris Jericho brought out the big scroll, and he said that he's the man of 1,007 holes. He started reading them off.
I remember that.
Maybe I see wrestling can make me laugh in ways that other things can't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my number 3 is one of those guys because I specifically remember going bowling, and I got the ball. I was a fairly good bowler. As soon as I knew I had a strike, there's a strike. I turn around and go absolutely perfect as it hits a strike, and I've done it a couple times, and it always works. Yes, Kurt Hennig is my number 3.
Love Mr. Perfect.
I grew up watching him actually in the AWA because it was on TSN, and one of my favorite matches for a long time was a 1 hour draw with him and Nick Bockwinkel.
Yep.
It was the whole show. They didn't even show the whole thing because they had commercials and whatever. And I remember loving that match. It was so good. And so I was a big fan. So when he came to the WWF at the time, I was ready because I already loved him, and I loved his character. And I loved
the Mr. Perfect character was great.
It was just so good. All the darts and the golf and the wide receiver thing. I mean, where he throws it and then turns to the guy and then runs the field and catches it. I mean, come on, that's just comedy at his best. But on top of that, he also was one of the best I've ever seen in the ring.
Oh, such a good technical wrestler, yes.
He had that Shawn Michaels quality that he was one of the best sellers. Like he made other guys look fantastic because of his selling. And he was just
Bret Hart and SummerSlam.
Yeah.
That was what a match that was.
Yeah.
Man, that has to definitely be in my top 10 or top 15 matches.
Yeah.
With those two. That was great.
Yeah, so I love Perfect. I just love him. I always have. I've heard that he was kind of a dink and wasn't really looked upon fondly by a lot of the locker room, but oh well. It's life, and I love him. So Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig is my number 3.
There you go. All right, so my number 3, well, this one would be I would be remiss if I didn't mention this particular wrestler. He's no longer with us. Oh, yeah. The Macho Man, Randy Savage. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you now. Step into it. No.
That's not bad. That's not a bad little breath.
It hurts my voice whenever I do it.
Sure.
But
sure it does. Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, I didn't see him until he came to the WWF. That was the first time I saw him, and I just like boom, just like that. I was hooked. I liked him, and then when he brought Elizabeth in, I was like, yeah, that's another great reason to like him too. But I mean, again, just his character was great. I loved him in the ring.
I adored him.
I mean,
his first 2 years in the WWF, he was maybe my favorite for those 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he was so good.
Oh yeah, I mean, and then that
elbow was amazing.
The elbow was amazing. How he got through the WrestleMania 4 tournament. Yeah. With then finally facing DiBiase at the end to claim the belt and stuff like that. And yeah, that was, I mean, all of that was great. Yeah. And then I even liked some of his WCW stuff, I think, until he got into the NWO, and then some of that started getting kind of wonky, but then but he did a lot. I mean, he certainly gave DDP a big boost, taking the Diamond Cutter that one time. And DDP would definitely be on he would probably be like number 6 for me, but yeah, you gotta love the Macho Man.
This reminds me, this is how big the Macho Man had become. Okay. It would have been the first time, Savage was still a heel, and he'd only been around for about a year, maybe less. I don't know. He was a heel, but I specifically remember going to at the Center in the Square, which is our best concert venue sound wise, where I watched a closed circuit. They charge tickets at this place, or a closed circuit card that was based out of Maple Leaf Gardens. It wasn't even like a televised thing. Wow. And it was Savage challenging Hogan for the belt. And it was so in demand that they charged you. Like, when I think about it now, it's crazy. Like, I'm not even a pay-per-view, and you're charging tickets for closed circuit. And that's how much of an impact that Savage made. And Hogan, of course. But yeah.
Well, and then, of course, and then Savage steals the show with Steamboat in WrestleMania 3. I mean,
a lot of people mention it as the greatest match I've ever seen, and
it's definitely in my top 5.
That's a valid answer.
Definitely.
And it's really weird too. Another thing, when Savage came out, I had heard one thing about him, because at the time I was getting those wrestling magazines. You know, whatever, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and
Inside
whatever.
Wrestling, The Wrestler.
Yep, all those things. Yeah. And I remember seeing maybe a year before he was in the big time. There were some people were aghast because Randy Savage pile drives some girl through a table. I don't remember who the girl was. I don't remember, but I remember that was my impression. That was my impression of Randy Savage. You know, he's coming in. I was like, whoa, the guy who, you know, it's neat, man. You gotta love Savage.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Indeed.
All right. Number two.
Fortunately, this man is still alive. You know, which is kind of surprising in the world of wrestling these days. And this is another guy who was responsible for a wrestling resurgence for me, because I'd say mid 90s, maybe a bit early 90s. I had almost got right completely out of it. Things were getting really silly. There was some silliness back in there, and I just had no interest. And you know, I kind of grew out of it, or whatever you want to talk about, for a few years and just wasn't into it. Then I started watching this WCW Saturday Night Show for some reason. I'm like, who is that guy? And I'll take you back a little bit. Like, I kind of have a thing for Charles Manson because my mother is weird, and she showed me like the movie Helter Skelter, like about that Manson family and the trial when I was like 8, 9 years old. It scared the crap out of me, but I always had this thing about Charles Manson, and all of a sudden, like, this guy reminds me of Charles Manson. He's kind of cool, and I'm just watching him, like, and it turned out to be Cactus Jack, and I fell in love with Cactus Jack. I fell in love with his matches. He made me, like, all of a sudden I had to watch WCW Saturday Night because like it was, the bumps were crazy. Like, I had never seen anything like it. Wrestling had never had this to me before. So I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I remember Big Van Vader, where our Harley Race takes the mat away and power bombs Cactus Jack on the cement. I'm like, I've never seen it. Like, this shouldn't be happening, you know? And there was another match with Cactus Jack and Max Payne against the Hardy Boys. And Cactus Jack took the hardest shovel to the face I've ever seen. I'm like, thinking, this is not the wrestling that, you know, and it literally began a resurgence of wrestling. And then throughout the years, you know, I loved it when they finally went after the WWF, and I loved it all. I loved this whole career. I still love the man. Like, well,
remember his match against this guy? Remember the match with him and Mil Mascaras?
Oh, yes, I do remember. I did not
God.
See it. I did not see it, but I've heard about it.
Oh, I was watching it live, and I'm like, you know, when Cactus takes this bump from Mascaras, and he falls backwards onto the floor, and the back of his head just plunk hits the floor, and I mean, it was past the mat. he made it past the mat and his head hits the floor. I'm like, oh, I think
I mean, we haven't even mentioned the obvious, the craziest bumps of all time in the craziest match of all time. We didn't even mention that.
Oh, geez. I mean, we could
ends.
talk an hour on Mick Foley. I mean,
yeah,
it
never ends. He's not that great of a wrestler, but when it comes to everything, the talking, everything about him, the comedy, everything about him, he's clearly my number two. I mean, my number one is my number one, and will never change. Mm-hmm. But the only reason it doesn't change is because of how important my number one is. But
right,
Dr. Jack is the solid number two because he's a quadruple threat. He's everything.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite spots, aside from the most obvious, was an ECW match he had with Shane Douglas. Now, Shane Douglas had somehow he handcuffed him.
Oh, so
he's got that. And he gets him in a figure four. And it was supposed to be like an I Quit match or something like that or something. Or I don't know what it was. But here comes Mikey Whipwreck with a chair. You think he's going to hit Shane with it? No, he hits for the fences and knocks Mick so hard my headphones almost knocked out. He hit him so hard with that chair straight to the face, no protection. Boom, down. 1, 2, 3. That's it.
I don't see how it's possible that Mick Foley doesn't have CTE.
Oh, I'm sure he probably does, and probably just doesn't know it yet. But
I just don't see how. Like, we've seen it for 30 years. I mean, it's kind of nuts.
So my number two. Sadly, this wrestler is no longer with us. But when he first came around, I kind of dug him. But then at SummerSlam '88. Honky Tonk Man didn't have an opponent. Oh man, I know that brother's music. Oh, I know that music. Oh man, here comes the Ultimate Warrior.
And 15 seconds later, it was over.
39 seconds or whatever it was later, he is the new Intercontinental Champion, knocking off a 14-month reign or whatever it was of the Honky Tonk Man, who was like the most weaselest of champions I'd ever seen.
Especially for 14 months.
Yeah, really. But I just became an Ultimate Warrior fan. Okay, maybe Jim Hellwig, the person, wasn't a great person to, when if you look at his life or whatever. But no matter what, I was always an Ultimate Warrior fan. I loved it when he beat Hogan at WrestleMania 6. The WrestleMania 7 match with him and Savage is one of my favorites. And honestly, I will never, ever forget one day the man's heart will no longer, that last promo he did. And then the next day he was gone. That promo he did on Raw, and then he died the next day, and I was like, every time I think of that promo, I still get chills.
It was crazy because I watched that Raw live. and I just remember the next day. What? I just saw him last night. What do you mean he's dead?
And I regret not going to SmackDown the following week because it was here in Birmingham, and they did a 10 bell I think to him then. But they also gave out like warrior masks. And I was like, oh man, I regret not going to that. But I'll always be an Ultimate Warrior fan. I won't apologize for that. So all right, let's hear your number one.
My number one. He's been my favorite wrestler for a good 20 years now. And it will never change. I first saw this guy in, I believe, Stampede Wrestling. Didn't see much then, but then I saw some tag matches with a couple of jobbers who I hated them both. One of them was Tom Zink, and I loved seeing him get beat up.
Yeah,
and his partner, Brian Pillman, and I loved seeing Brian Pillman get beat up. I just loved watching those two guys get the crap kicked out of them. Loved it. So fast forward like about a year later, and I see a match with Brian Pillman and Ric Flair, and I'm like, holy cow, he's really I kind of given it to him. Then I see, which is maybe my favorite match of all time, which it was at a Super Brawl. It started off an event. It was Brian Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yep.
In one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life.
Amazing.
And I still love it. The commentary is Jim Ross and Jesse the Body Ventura. You're not going to get better commentary than that, in my opinion.
Nope.
And it's still, and throughout the years, and then, it's now, and I love heels. Well, Brian Pillman then became one of the best heels I've ever seen in my life. He teams up with Steve Austin, and they're doing the Hollywood Blondes, and I ate it all up. Yeah. And then even later, like, his WWF stuff was troubled, but hey, he should have been dead. Like, he wasn't the same. He couldn't be the Flying Brian that he was before.
No.
Because you remember, Corky, Brian Pillman was the first ever winner of a major federation light heavyweight champion. He was the first ever light heavyweight champion of any of the things, and he was great. But then he's just not the same guy anymore.
Yeah.
But his genius of promos.
Oh,
I remember not long before he died, because there was this thing going on with Goldust and Marlena and Brian Pillman, because Brian Pillman had won the services of Marlena for 2 weeks or a month or whatever it was. And there was a promo that is still, I love it so much because one, it's funny, and two, it was one of the very first times I had seen like a wrestler break the fourth wall kind of thing, whatever we call it, because it's this thing, and it's Brian Pillman in a hotel room, and he's wearing just his underwear, and he says, hey, that's what he says. He says, hey, Dustin, which is just crazy that he's calling him Dustin. He goes, hey, Dustin, nothing gets in between me and my Calvin Kleins. And he's wearing Calvin Klein underwear, clearly. He goes, oh, except for your wife, Terry. And I remember thinking that, like, that is amazing, because you don't ever hear people mention their real names and stuff. So I loved that. I mean, now, my favorite promo of all time now is an ECW promo where Brian Pillman debuts in ECW. I highly recommend that promo to watch.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's my favorite promo of all time, and it always will be. So,
what he did in ECW was crazy. There were lots of good stuff there. But
he's my favorite. He's been my favorite a long time. Like 20 years ago, I remember when I was playing video golf, my name was always Pillman. I just loved him. So that's my number one.
So originally, I was gonna, I had two different people as my number one, but then I got thinking about it. I was like, well, but how many matches did you really watch of them, or how much did you know just from wrestling magazines or highlights or whatever? Did you really watch a lot of matches? And I got thinking about it. I'm like, not as much as I really think. Maybe the character, yes. As a wrestler, I just never saw enough matches. So unfortunately, I had to disqualify Bruno and Bob Backlund.
Oh, wow.
I love them both.
It's the same with me. I've seen little things, and what I've seen is amazing.
I mean, to me, the Bruno Larry Zbyszko thing,
love it,
off the charts. Love that. That was like, whoa,
that's awesome.
That was wild. So I really had to rethink about this. I'm like, well, who is it that I love the character. I've always was his. I don't care if he was a heel. I don't care if he was a face, whatever. And it really just came down to one person. And it was a person that I've had the chance to meet a couple of times. He was a reason why I even started DDPY in the first place. And I even got to thank that man for it. Trust me, Jake the Snake.
Wow.
Roberts.
He almost made my list.
There was just something about Jake you just couldn't turn away. I don't know why. I just love that DDT when it was meant to be a finishing maneuver, not just a like an AEW. It's just like a commonplace move. It's, you basically start a wrestling match probably off with a DDT with them anymore. But the Snake thing was kind of cool. I mentioned Savage already, and the Snake biting him, and
that's an incredible scene.
How traumatic was it for the Snake when the Snake when Earthquake did the sit down thing on the Snake. It really wasn't the Snake in there, I think, from what I heard. But yeah, I don't know. Jake has just always been one of those guys I've always appreciated and I've always liked. And then when you watch the resurrection of Jake the Snake, DDP, when I saw that was what made me say I need to start doing DDP yoga, because I was getting pretty heavy. I was getting pretty out of shape. My mobility was bad. I'm like, I want to start getting back into shape, and I just need to get myself back on track. And so I got to thank Jake for that. There was another wrestler that actually his story inspired me, and that was Scott Hall. And I got to thank him for it too, and got a picture with him too. So
nice. That's
and
awesome.
So I got, there's a lot of very well-known stories in DDPY, but those weren't the ones that got me into the program. It was Jake and Scott, not some of like Arthur Borman's a character as a person that everybody goes to for their story. And he does have a wonderful story, but it was Jake and Scott's story originally that got me into doing DDPY, and the rest is history.
I'm not sure if you remember this particular one. Maybe you do. I can't remember if it was on a pay-per-view or if it was on a show, but it was a WCW show. And one of my favorite debuts of a guy in a federation was with I was staying in the ring. All of a sudden it's like, it was Tony Schiavone, and it might even have been Jim Ross too. I was like, "What's Jake Roberts doing here? What's Jake Roberts doing here?" And he comes in and just kicks the crap out of Sting. At the time, I'm already deep into my heel thing. I'm loving every second of it, and I just remember that debut was so. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
What's Jake Roberts doing here? It's funny how it happened 25 years ago, 30 years ago, but it's burned in your brain, and you'll never forget.
It's burned in your brain, and and of course you think about the famous Austin 316 promo, all the stuff that he was saying before that. Well, he was directing it all towards Jake, because he had just beat Jake, and whatever. And he was going like, you could talk about your sobs, you could talk about your this, but also your John 316, but also 316 says, I just kicked your ass,
without Jake in that whole thing, all the circumstances there might not have been like the Steve Austin that he became. That's pretty amazing, actually.
It is amazing. So there you go, folks.
Wow.
Elimination Chamber breakdown, top 5 or favorite wrestlers.
Awesome.
What more could a body want, right? Monday Night Metal, Monday Night Meat, whatever. Rock and wrestling with meat and metal. There's all kinds of good stuff here. So
and we got to do this again.
We definitely need to do this again.
We'll definitely do this again. Too much fun.
Too much fun. So
and it is interesting that we named 10 wrestlers and we didn't double. I thought for sure we were going to double, and we did not double.
We did not double. Cool. And while Mike is still listening, for those of you watching Grab a Stack of Rock, he's got this amazing Iron Maiden series going on. And if my memory serves me correctly, you can hear Uncle Meat's pipes in the intro.
Yes, it is. There was a song that was a parody fun song that was done by myself and Dave Haslam and Sebastian. Right. Yes, there is. And I'm going to be on probably 2. Right now it's scheduled as 2 of the Iron Maiden episodes.
Okay.
Soon enough, I will be joining Mike and Harrison for the Live After Death show, which I'm looking forward to very much.
Right.
And I'm also slated to join the A Matter of Life and Death show, which I'm looking forward to because I really like that album.
I do too. I do too. That's probably the only post reunion album that I've really spent a lot of time with. It's by far what in my opinion, the best thing they've done. Post. Yeah, since Bruce came back, and it's they haven't put out an album close to that since. Yeah. I don't think. Right. That's my opinion. So for those of you, you need to get some Iron Maiden fix. Then go subscribe to Grab a Stack of Rock. Just do it. Indeed. You'll love it. Indeed. Yeah. Go on there because he's doing some great shows and great shows, and they're just going to keep on coming. Yep. Because it's 50 years of Iron Maiden. Man. That's right. It is. And hey, you never know what's going to come up with my music corner. Well, me and Meat might be doing some more stuff here in the future. Well, that's going to happen. Oh, it will, because we've talked about so many different possibilities that we've never done. We'll get them. Just that the wrestling was a no-brainer. It's like, well, I mean, yep. It's not like I needed to write stuff down. It was just talk about it. We'll do it. We will do it. So. Thank you. There y'all, folks. Rock forever. We will see you. If I can get my finger to point right, we'll see you guys all soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Uncle Meat. Thanks for having me, man. Thank you. Thank you. We will see y'all soon. Yes. Oh, yeah, Ron.